Hello, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Wesley Boudreau, one of the AT&T Focus Advisors here with the Retirement Group. Today we're going to talk a little bit about the differences as far as the pension options many AT&T folks have and what that decision process is. We've been looking at the lump sum versus the annuity. We'll go through that. We'll talk about the annuity, talk about the lump sum. We'll talk about how interest rates have affected that in the past and how they may change going forward as well. Before I get started, I just want to remind everybody that throughout the course of this, we will put some information in the chat box, so follow along there. Items like how to follow us on our LinkedIn page, how to get access to other webinars, maybe a survey to ask how this webinar went, or other topics you'd like to add. There's also a Q&A box in there, so if you have a question, feel free to put that in there. Your information is anonymous, so your name will not pop up. We'll be sure to try and address as many as we can at the end of the call or at the end of the webinar. If we don't get to all of them, we'll try and follow up with you as well. With that being said, a quick reminder for those of you who do not know who the Retirement Group is. Again, we are an independent financial advisory firm that focuses on working with corporate employees and helping them transition into retirement. We've been doing this for about 30 years, and for that full 30 years, we've been working with AT&T, helping employees transition to retirement and helping them make sure they don't make any mistakes in that transition process. We've got a wealth of knowledge surrounding the AT&T plans. The reason we focus on a select few companies is it gives us that knowledge, allows our advisors to focus on specifically understanding the benefits plans, whether it be the pension plan, the 401k plan, healthcare retiree medical benefits, life insurance. All those different options as you transition to retirement are options that mistakes can be made on. So our goal is to help you avoid those mistakes and walk away from AT&T with the most money you can from that employer. We do have offices throughout the country, so rest assured if you need to sit down with one of us face-to-face, we can still probably accommodate that. But obviously this day and age, it's very easy to have web meetings, phone calls, emails, fax, whatever your preferred communication method is, just let us know. And at the end of the day, if you haven't taken us up on this before, or it's been over a year or so, the best thing you can use this for is our complimentary cash flow analysis. This is an in-depth review or a financial plan, if you would, to determine are you on the right path for your retirement goals, whether you're looking at retiring a year or 5 years, or maybe you just retired, want to check it to make sure you can withdraw what you want to withdraw and make sure your money will last throughout retirement. So it's a way to look at not just now, but how it looks at 10, 20, 30 years down the road as well, factoring in spending versus inflation, everything like that. So this is all a complimentary plan that will give you a better idea of what your situation looks like and give us a better idea as well so we can help you on that next step as you retire and help you manage those accounts as well if you need that service. So let's talk about the AT&T plans. It's going to depend upon who you are, where you were when you were hired, and who you were hired with. But there are different pension plans through AT&T, whether it be the classic defined benefit plans, which we're going to talk about today. Maybe it was a cash balance plan, which is a little bit different. That's a plan where you're getting interest credits deposited each year, and that's going to grow based upon treasury rates. That's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about the defined benefit plan classic, where there's a calculation method that's used to determine what your single life annuity is going to be. So again, that annuity is based upon that age 65, and like I mentioned, as far as the different claiming strategies, there's differences in there as far as taking the annuity versus a lump sum, joint and survival. We'll kind of go through some of those different options here as well in just a moment. So those options, like I mentioned, are that single life annuity. So again, that calculation method takes a look at either your age, either your banding options, or it may look at your years of service, your final average pay, Social Security offset, and a multiplier to determine how much you're going to get on a single life annuity. So that's a payment for you, just you, for the rest of your life. And then from there, the other options are calculated out, whether you want to look at a joint survivor annuity, which is going to be able to pay for not just yourself, but probably a significant other as well if you pass away earlier. And then also the lump sum, if you say, hey, I want to take this money, go and manage it on my own, or work with a retirement group or somebody to help me manage it and outperform that annuity. Or maybe you've got longevity issues. So we'll go through some of those different options and kind of show you how those fit into the big picture. So first and foremost, we mentioned that single life annuity. So let's run through kind of a hypothetical calculation. And after you look at your years of service, your final average pay, your Social Security offset, everything comes out to, let's say you get $2,000 a month of guaranteed income for the rest of your life. So that's going to be whether you live 7 years or whether you live 30 more years. You're going to keep getting that $2,000 a month for the rest of your life. Now there are some issues with that because it's a great guaranteed income source that that's not going to change. is a good thing. It's also a bad thing because we've seen with inflationary pressure over the last year or so that that $2,000 is not going to stretch as far as what it does in the future. So in about 20, 30 years, that $2,000 might actually be worth about $1,000 when you factor in the purchasing power erosion that you see based upon inflation. The other issue is, God forbid something happens to you sooner in life. If don't have much longevity on your side, and let's say you only live 10 years, you're only getting 10 years of that $2,000 a month. So you or your beneficiaries might not be getting as much out of that as what you otherwise would have if you took the lump sum or looked at a joint survivor annuity. So if you are looking at a joint survivor annuity, that's an option where you can make sure that your spouse or significant other is taken care of as well, and he or she can get a continuation payment of 100%, 75, 50%. So on that $2,000 example, if AT&T were paying off of 2 lives, they're not going to give you $2,000 anymore because there's higher risk for them to pay longer. So let's say if you did a joint survivor with 100% continuation, it might be, you might only get $1,700 a month for the rest of your lives, in which case you would get $1,700, and if you passed away, your spouse would continue to get that $1,700. Maybe if you did a joint survivor with a 50%, it might be $1,800 that you get, and then if you pass away, your spouse will get $900, 50% of that. These are all the numbers I just made up in my head, but we can always walk you through the pinch projection tool to show you exactly what your numbers are on those beneficiary options if you do a spousal continuation method there. There's also a pop-up, so God forbid something happens in your spouse dies before you, there's ability to actually pop back up into what your original single life annuity would have been with some caveats to that, which we can get into on a one-on-one basis. Let's talk about the lump sum. So what's going to happen is interest rates are a key element for that lump sum. And you've probably seen a lot of our webinars or had conversations with us over the last year about how high these interest rates were going, how quickly they were going. And we've preached about this for the last 15 years since the new PPA segment rates have been used, about how interest rates can change and affect it, and especially with the AT&T plans, because what they do is they update their interest rates once a year. They use the November interest rates to dictate what the interest rates will be for the following year. So with that being said, there's big changes, whereas other companies might do monthly or quarterly, so those changes may be more gradual. So keep in mind, look at that seesaw pattern there. When interest rates go up, your lump sum is going to go down. When interest rates go down, your lump sum is going to come up. So that's what we saw during the pandemic. We saw the government driving down interest rates to help fuel the economy. So what that was doing is bringing those interest rates down was also increasing your lump sums. So they were somewhat artificially inflated because those interest rates were too low. Now we're on that flip side where in 2022 we saw the interest rates start to move up dramatically. So now we're seeing the lump sums drop. We're past that point already because we've got the November interest rates out. If you take a look at the November interest rates, they're segment rates they use. There's the first, second, and third. The first segment correlates to the first 5 years of retirement, second segment for years 6 through 20, and the third segment years 21 and beyond. So for most of us, that middle segment is going to cover 15 years, so the bulk of our retirement, so it has the highest weighting. But if we look at that, look at this, it's going to be 5.09%, 5.6%, and 5.41% is what it was for November 2022, which means here for all of 2023, if you decide to take the retire and take the lump sum on your commencement, those are the interest rates you're using. Now in red, we've got how much they jumped from the last year. So they went up by 4% on the first segment, 2.88 on the second, and 2.33 on the last. Let's average them out to maybe 3%. We were seeing a lot of individuals lose, between 25 to even over 30% in their lump sum from 2022 to 2023. So that's why I had deep conversations and ran cash flow reports to let people understand the different options, whether they should retire early or continue working, or on a break even to say, hey, you might need to work another 18 months just to recoup this. Go through all those. Those are things we can still help you with. Now on that flip side, where hopefully we'll see these interest rates level off and start to come back down, but by no means will they go back down to where they were in the pandemic levels. But if you are thinking about retiring here in the next year or two, and you're thinking about taking that lump sum, it may benefit you to wait until next year, and we'll keep you updated on those interest rates as they come forward as well. So going back to, like we said, the lump sum options, the way that they calculate that using those interest rates is they go and look at your current single life annuity and your age to look at longevity. So let's say that you're 60 years old and longevity rates are 86. So they say, okay, I've got to pay this person $2,000 a month for the next 26 years. Let me use that and go and look at the interest rates to calculate how much I have to give them as a lump sum for them to essentially go out there and try and recreate that same paycheck. So if you're younger, let's say if you're instead of 60 or 55, that's now instead of 26 years, that's 31 years of payments. So that would equate to a higher lump sum because there's more years of payments. If you're older, 65, that's less years of payments. So that calculates out to a lower lump sum. So regardless of where interest rates move, if we're looking at it based upon age, around 60 is that sweet spot. So if you're older, it's going to be less, as far as the change will be less severe in the lump sum for you when interest rates change. And if you're younger, they'll be more severe on those changes. But again, the best way to look at this is by running a cash flow analysis with us, and we'll go through all that with you. So let's take a look at the lump sum and give you kind of a comparison, looking at a mortgage maybe to put it in better terms. So let's look at two different options and look at a difference of a 4% rate versus a 3% rate to show you how those interest rates change. If we go back to that seesaw pattern we talked about, the higher interest rates are going to equate to a lower lump sum. The lower interest rates are going to equate to a higher lump sum. So looking here on the left-hand side, we've got the same payment. So let's assume an annuity or an amount you can afford to buy a house for, or a payment you can afford of $19.50 per month. So if we've got a 4% interest rates, and let's assume it's a 30-year mortgage, or assume you're going to live for 30 years, that's going to be $408,000 that you could afford on a house, or $408,000 that AT&T would have to give you as that lump sum for you to go and try and recreate that same $19.50 per month. Now on the other side, those interest rates, the only thing that's changed here is the same amount of monthly income, but the interest rate's gone down to 3%, and now you're looking at $462,000, so over $50,000 more that you're able to afford in a home purchase, or that you're going to get in that lump sum. So the opposites happened where, let's pretend before we were on that 3%, now we've gone to that 4% because interest rates have gone up, so we've seen that drop in lump sums, like I said, from 2022 to 2023, anywhere from the low 20% to as high as 30% for many people. And again, this is on the defined benefit plan. If you have the cash balance plan, you do not see that change. That's a little bit different. So I mentioned this before, and obviously this is what we would love to hammer in since it's complimentary. If you have questions on this, it's best to look at your individual situation, run a cash flow analysis to look at both the annuity and the lump sum side by side, because those change, there's ebbs and flows. Whereas last year, pretty much everybody was taking the lump sum. If you decide to retire this year, the annuity is going to look more attractive for most of you as well. But we can still look at those side by side because everybody's different, longevity issues or desires as far as spending. But the best way to do that is go ahead and give us a call, or go ahead and update or run one of those cash flow reports. Right now, about 3/4 of Americans over 50 don't even have a written plan. If you can spend about 10 minutes with us gathering some data or updating some data, give us about a week, we'll put that report together for you. It'll be a detailed report to show you exactly where you stand and what your options are, and then we can tweak it from there if you want to make any changes to it, and look at whether or not I want to retire this year, or if I worked longer, what it would do, or if I could if I wanted to retire in a couple of years, could I retire earlier? Go through all those different scenarios to show you the best options for you. So in order to get that accomplished, obviously you need to schedule a meeting with one of us or give us a call. So just go ahead and reach out. You can call us at 1-800-900-5867. You can also email us at info@theretirementgroup.com. And I'll keep this up here for a while when we get into some questions. Looks like it came through. There's a couple QR codes up here. One is to schedule an appointment with myself or one of the other AT&T focused advisors. You can do that to get into our calendars and schedule a meeting. There's also one to follow us on our LinkedIn page, and you can specifically follow us on the AT&T focused LinkedIn page. So we'll keep you updated as interest rates change, how it affects the lump sum. If AT&T comes out with any announcements, plan changes to medical benefits, 401k, pension, things like that, we'll always keep you updated on that. So let me go ahead and direct over, and let's see about some questions that we had come through, and then we'll get this wrapped up for you and let you get on your way. So I've got one. Why do some of my coworkers at AT&T who also have 23 years of service have a substantially larger lump sum than me? Okay, we ran into a lot of this last year, and it's going to depend upon a couple of things. Well, obviously, if you guys have both been there for 23 years, but you're in different departments, have different pay, that's going to be one factor. But I've also run into it where individuals were hired pretty much the same time or so, and the pay is somewhat similar. And the biggest difference you're going to see usually is going to depend upon what pension plan you're under, whether you're under the cash balance plan, whether you were Singular or AT&T Wireless, whether you were AT&T Legacy. All those different things kind of factor into it. And a lot of times, if you're on that cash balance plan, unfortunately, your lump sum's not going to be as large because of the way that's calculated. Now, if this drop in interest rates, or this increase in interest rates, drop in lump sums, that's kind of narrowed those gaps, if you would. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. It's based upon your department and based upon where you were. If you have any questions, think there's a mistake, we can dig into it. We can walk you through how to estimate the pension and then get the actual calculation details and dig into there and make sure there's no mistakes on there. But we have gone through this, and we'll be happy to kind of shed some light on the differences for you. But generally, those are the reasons, either difference in pay or difference in your pension structure based upon where you were originally hired. Okay, with interest rates so high on the lump sum, does it make sense to just take an annuity from AT&T? Well, that's all going to depend, and that goes back to that cash flow analysis because everybody's unique and different. But if you were saying, hey, I'm retiring this year in 2023, I'm not looking to work longer, and I want the most bang for my buck, and I've got longevity on my side, I think I'm going to live a long life, then probably the annuity is going to make the most sense because we had such a severe drop in the lump sum. However, it may still make sense to take the lump sum because you might have longevity issues where, if you're not going to live, if you don't think you'll live into your 80s or beyond that, you're going to be able to spend more or get more for your family to pass on. So you want to make sure you've got more control of the assets maybe with the lump sum so you can pass that on, maybe try and grow that more so than what the annuity is going to pay. So there's some of the key things to look at, but one unique thing we kind of ran into at the end of 2022, and it may still be relevant here in 2023, we just need to look at the numbers based upon your specific situation. But even if you said, hey, I like that annuity, let's go back to that $2,000 example. Last year, at the end of the year, because interest rates were still low, which meant the lump sum was high, and interest rates had started coming up on the private side if you wanted to buy your own annuity, we had a lot of individuals who were able to take a look at their lump sum, use that to buy their own private annuity that would have paid a lot more than what the AT&T annuity was. So instead of getting $2,000 a month, it might have been $2,500 a month. Or they might have said, well, let me take out of my lump sum, use a percentage of it, let's say 80% of it to get to $2,000, and I've still got an extra 20% left over. So those are options to look at. It's not going to be as lucrative here in 2023, but it still may be a benefit. It's worth looking at least. Generally speaking, that annuity may make more sense right now, but it's still good to look at options. If you defer out until 2024 or beyond, hopefully these interest rates will come down, so it's going to be a different calculation method to look at where the lump sum may become more attractive. So really the best way here is just give us a call. We can run the numbers side by side for you, run that cash flow analysis, and let you know what those choices are for you. We got one more, we'll get this wrapped up for you. My coworker left last year, and she said she locked in her lump sum at a lower rate, that I missed the window for this lower rate. Yes, unfortunately, like we said before, the interest rates changed dramatically from 2022 to 2023. This is the biggest change we've ever seen, and like I said, a lot of people, if you're looking at your lump sum, if you're going to, let's say, retire in December 2022 versus January 2023, we saw a lot of these drop by 20, 25, 30, in some cases 35%. And so that was a major drop. And yes, that window has changed because what happens is you can't go backwards and retire based upon that. So there's a process. You retire first, then you commit your benefits. Now you can retire and not commit your benefits immediately. You can defer those in some cases if you want to see interest rates drop. So there is a chance we have to kind of let the year play itself out. If we get closer to November of 2023, those interest rates may come down. So you could see a bump back up in your lump sum. But again, like I said before, I don't think there's any chance of them going to where they were during the pandemic lows. Again, that was artificially decreased. If we go down that low, that means we've got some other economic issues and problems on hand here as well. But we can definitely update those. And as we get closer to the end of the year, give you updates on the interest rates and run some estimates there for you. So with that, I'm going to wrap this up. And again, ultimately, this is just kind of a high-level overview of the pension options you have as an AT&T employee. If you want to dig deeper or run that cash flow analysis, it's best to give us a call and go through that or schedule an appointment. And a quick reminder, like I said before, we have been working with AT&T for 30 years. However, that does not mean we are endorsed by AT&T nor are we employed by them. But should you have any questions, we'll be happy to dig into it deeply for you, let you know exactly where you stand, and talk with you about those next step options. So again, it's 1-800-900-5867. Thank you very much. We hope you have a great day.